All right, y'all, welcome to the Mad Rhythms Podcast Network. This is the Either And Podcast, and I'm your host, Brill Barrett. When there's contention and controversy, most people believe the solution has to be either or. I believe the solution lies somewhere in either and. Welcome to the Either And Podcast. I am your host, Brill Barrett, and today I am joined by a very, very special guest, one of the premier and prominent dancers in the city of Chicago, choreographers in the city of Chicago, company directors in the city of Chicago. And yes, when you run a nonprofit, you wear many, many hats. And we'll get into that. But let me first introduce Miss Vershawn Sanders Ward.
Hey.
I almost forgot to say the whole thing. And I was like, oh, no.
It's all good.
Glad to have you here. So for those that don't know, tell everybody what your company is and just a little bit of the background of your company.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Brill, for inviting me. And, just always honored to share space with you as another leader in this city that's really been putting it down. Putting it down for years. I won't tell everyone the story of how I first met you, but Red Clay Dance Company, we have been working for 15 years in the city. I would say 13 years in Chicago, 15 years total. I founded the company in 2008.
Okay.
In Brooklyn, New York. I am from Chicago. Don't
okay.
get twisted.
Okay. That was gonna be my next question. I didn't know you wasn't from here.
I'm from here. I'm from the Chi, but I was in grad school at NYU when I decided to start Red Clay. And it was,
you're a smart artist.
Oh, my goodness. I had my plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all that.
Okay.
So I was living in Brooklyn at the time, had an opportunity to travel to Senegal, West Africa, to study with amazing artist there, Germaine Incogni. And it was during those 3 months in Senegal that I just decided I wanted to start my own organization.
Okay.
I didn't want to do the rat race in New York of like hopping on this train, going to this audition, trying to meet this person. And I just had a bigger vision for my art and wanted to explore that. And so I founded the company in New York in 2008. And then I moved back home to Chicago in 2010 and kind of just relocated the company here.
Okay.
Did auditions at the Gary Comer Youth Center.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
We've done some stuff there. Beautiful place.
Beautiful place. So did auditions there. Got, I think at that first audition, we had 6 dancers that joined the company. And did our first show at the Harold Washington Cultural Center.
No dope. Shout out. I don't even have the buttons programmed to be like, pew, 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 pew.
I just was like, this is a beautiful theater. This is where we're going to do our first performance. And so that's where it all started. And we've been, committed to this city, to both the artists of Chicago, the youth of Chicago since then. And, wanting to highlight the rich history, culture, and just magic that exists in this part. Well, in Chicago in general, but specifically on the South Side. So that's the story. We're continuing to move forward and grow and share our artivism.
We're gonna get into the behind that whole how that came about, because I'm sure I call myself a taptivist for years, so I'm sure we on the same page. But I'm very interested in the story, but. Before we get to that story, I do want to know, how did we first meet again? That story that you skipped, you were going to skip, you said.
I was going to say, we didn't really meet.
Okay,
I was kind of fangirling a little bit.
Oh, really? Now I got to hear the story. Do tell.
Well, I had gone to like a party. It was somewhere on the north side. I think I hadn't left Chicago yet for grad school. I had just finished undergrad, but it was a party, and it was like an outdoor area where they had like a live band, and they had some tap dancers.
Oh, so, this sounds like First Fridays.
And so it was you and another gentleman. And you all were tapping together, and I was like, man, who's that? Like, they got dance in a party? Like, I mean, in a party. Folk was in there getting it in.
Yeah.
But it was a way to kind of come outside, get some air, but there was also art. So I just enjoyed that, like, I'm like, man, this is amazing just to walk out and see a live performance like this. And you wouldn't necessarily expect it because it was like a club, but then it was like on the outside. So that was the first time I saw you tap. And
Interesting.
I was like, who is that? And then years later, when I think it was some concert, a joint concert. I was like, that's the same guy from the party. I was like, he got a company? Like, oh man. So that's, so we didn't meet.
Okay,
I
okay.
myself.
Okay.
I was like appreciating from a distance.
Well, it's funny. I appreciate you telling that story because it goes to show I've been on a mission for a long time to get tap respected by like general audiences in general. Like it was so, and I don't have to tell you, but tap has been pigeonholed for so long. It was Broadway or Hollywood, and then it was, if you weren't wearing a tuxedo and a top hat, people didn't, or people used to ask, why aren't you smiling? Like all of these different things. And so when I was coming up, I was on these missions. I had all these mini missions. I guess this was baby Brill as a taptivist.
Yes.
I wanted to be the first tap dancer to rap.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny, Mad Rhythms is archiving our collection at the Newberry, and I just took a bunch of stuff to the Newberry Library yesterday.
Wow.
And included in that is a pair of K-Swiss that I had taps put on because I wanted to bring, the regular world into the tap world and vice versa. But I remember there was a period whenever there was parties going, even if we didn't get paid, we'd get in the parties for free.
Yeah.
If we were entertainers. So there was that. But the other thing was I was like, I don't want to just be in dance settings. I want to be in settings where people who just are having a good time, enjoy themselves, and happen to see dance. And maybe that turns them into future artist members or future class members or future something in support of the dance. So I like that you brought that story up because that made me think about, man, I was on that for quite a while.
And dance is so social,
Yeah.
especially our dances.
Yeah.
It's social, so to me it would make sense. It's not something separate from our everyday lived experience. It's not just in the theater. Dance, you can see it and experience everywhere. So that's what I love, like just putting yourself in the place for folks to access. And then like you said, like, oh, I really enjoy that. Let me learn more. You know what I'm saying? But I was like at the club.
No, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So now as we start to fast forward, in the state of the world we are in today. So, and I don't know if, fully, like the whole reason I tell people all the time, this is not a tap dance podcast, which is why the people that I have that I talk to, I feel like are just people in society trying to do good and make things better the same way I am. So for me, the whole concept with either and is that a lot of people think it's got to be my way or your way. And a lot of times that solution lies in the middle of that. And so I like, every time I saw Red Clay, I was like, knowing all these new things. Oh, see, Vanessa's telling me I'm moving too much. You wasn't going to even say nothing. You like, he told me.
I'm just trying to hold myself together because I know how I get.
But, the first times I started being aware of Red Clay, I feel like it was at Gary Coma. Is that where you were doing a youth something, and I brought our youth tap dancers from our youth programs, and that was the first connection. But I don't think I knew fully what Red Clay was. I just knew y'all kids were better than kids. Like you see kids come out of dance schools, and I felt like the first time I saw young people dancing under the Red Clay banner, I just remember going, they not old enough to have the emotions that they seem to be dancing with on stage. Yes. How is this possible? So I'm sure there's a story behind even how you get dancers in tune with their emotions and things of that nature. But so that was my first exposure and experience with Red Clay. And then a lot of the times, it's funny, we would run into each other and be on the same projects from time to time. But a lot of the stuff is I just start reading. I was like, every time I looked around, there's an interview with Vershawn Sanders, and then it was and then the building. And I know that was, I know that was an undertaking. So I guess let's go back a little bit. I was asking you before we actually got on record about if you started off as a nonprofit, and you said from the beginning. So tell me how you knew, because I preface this by saying Mad Rhythms wasn't a nonprofit at first. I didn't know nothing about nonprofit world. Nobody taught me. There wasn't a place where somebody say, "Are you thinking of becoming a nonprofit? Go here." So I started Mad Rhythms as a for-profit. I incorporated it as a regular business, and I believe that like a large part of my influence growing up was my uncle, who was a businessman. And so when I started talking about doing stuff, a lot of his advice was from a businessman point of view. And so, and I appreciated having that, because as an artist, I didn't learn that in school. So I started as a for-profit, and my theory in my own mind was, why would I say I'm going to be non-for-profit? I'm going to make some money. My mom was teaching me all about positive thinking, and I'm like, I ain't going to start off saying I'm not making money. So, and of course, I didn't know what this world was. But you started off as a nonprofit. Why?
Right.
Or how did that come about?
Yeah, so it was, I had attended it was like a workshop or a webinar or something as I was finishing up school at NYU. And, actually, let me go back. I would say my first entry into the nonprofit world was as a student at Columbia College in undergrad. I worked in the office. Like, you get the little student job. And, everybody like, the little
it's
student.
It's either the lunchroom or the office.
But I was like, I'm going in this office because I want to see what's happening behind the scenes. And, like, how are you all bringing these artists in? How are you paying them? Like, how are you all making this business model work? And so that was my first, like, understanding.
I'm only laughing because now your hand's going.
Sorry. You see, I'm talking. So that was my first introduction to like, oh, what are grants? This is what we're using this sort of application, and this is how we have to talk about our programs in order to get this money. These are who funders are. This is what a corporate sponsorship is. So it was that understanding from learning how the program was really paying their bills, and I was like, how are you all doing this? Because I knew instinctually, like, ticket sales is I knew that out the gate. I was I'm counting the seats and how much y'all are charging. There's no way ticket sales is paying for all of this. It's paying for this. So I knew right away, looking at the services or programs that Red Clay could offer, I was like, the earned revenue is never going to cover it 100%. So what else do I need to do? And the challenge, though, was thinking about, well, I feel like the arts are enough, like just experiencing exposure to the arts. But in the nonprofit sector, there's this idea of like a theory of change or your impact. Like, what are you trying to change in the world? And I'm just like, I'm just trying to get people to dance. Like, that's enough, ain't it? But it's like, well, there's more. So I had to think about it from that perspective, like, okay, what impact is Red Clay trying to make if I'm going to make this a 501c3? Has to, because otherwise, a for-profit, we're just going to do shows, performances, and that's it. Exactly. Right? So in making that choice, going to this webinar, fast forward, I didn't know the process of forming a 501c3. I thought you just fill out a little thing, send it into the IRS, and they like, you good. I'm like, no, there's so much more. And so that webinar really opened my eyes to like, okay, you got to have a board of directors. Who's the board of directors? What's their job? And, as you're bringing on staff, how, it was all the ins and outs of it. But what I did learn is that a 501c3 is literally a tax, it's your tax categorization of your business. Right. But it's still a business, And I think I didn't learn that until later on into my career, that it's not about not making money. Right. Yeah, I'm like, no, we make money. It's what you do with that revenue that absolutely that, changes that for you. So that was my introduction. I had a little bit of behind the scenes, and then I went to that particular webinar and started to really understand what it takes to form a nonprofit and to maintain that status.
Yeah, because that's a whole nother. We could do a podcast on forming, and then we could do a whole nother podcast on maintaining.
Because it's not that you get it forever. There are things you have to continue to do. And I think a lot of people don't know that going in, like, oh, it's more. You know? Yeah. And I think the last thing that I didn't know about was fiscal sponsorship. And I found out I think it was maybe 2 months after I got my letter, like, yeah, we're officially 501c3. And I started thinking about like, who's going to be on my board? You know, like this is a new organization. I'm new as an artist. You know, I'm like, who can I convince to be on my board and take responsibility for this thing that I'm still building? So, of course, it started off with like a mentor, or friends, or family, people that I knew. But I didn't know about fiscal sponsorship. And I'm like, man, I could have, you know, for the, I mean, really just borrowing someone else's 501c3 for a while.
Right, for a while. Until you figure out
your operations and how you're going to grow. And also being able to learn from an established organization about reporting and all of that stuff, you know, finance, how you have to keep your budget together. I'm like, man, I wish I had. But anyway, in the long run, it all worked out. Because you know, that was my journey, that was my path. But in I would say in mentoring young artists today, I do encourage, like, you know, just look at all the different kinds of structures of a business. 501c3 is not the only way, and there's a lot of things about it that are broken. There's a lot of things in it that are inequitable for Black and brown people. So I do, you know, I do kind of give that advice. Like, make sure that this is really the way that you want to form your business and knowing why you want to do that. But there's so many other ways now that you can umbrella different businesses, you know.
Absolutely.
That they didn't want to let us know about, for real. So I'm like, I see how y'all are doing that. So that was my process to forming one.
Nice. And that's also, you bring up a good point. That's why I wanted us to talk about it, because maybe some dancer who just might be a fan of Red Clay or Mad Rhythms or both, either and or, listens to this and doesn't have the same first steps that you or I had, because they're listening to us have this conversation about it. So I definitely look at, and you know, educators forever. Like, we're always going to find a way through everything we do to educate. So I'm like, I think I never heard anybody I looked up to in dance or otherwise talking about this kind of stuff. So I was never able to just sit and absorb. So I had to learn the hard way. A lot of
trial and error.
I won't talk about having the IRS knock on my door at home in the past.
Oh no. Oh no. They found you. You let them find you.
But I will say, even like learning that non-for-profit and tax exempt are two different things. 501c3 is both of those things together.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so like even that,
and it's classifications inside of that. And
public charity versus a foundation versus
So really knowing what it is you're starting, understanding your vision, and getting with a really good tax accountant, really good attorney that understands nonprofit, you know, just go. And I will say that I feel like there are organizations now that do kind of support artists going through that process, more so than where it was in the past. There are more lawyers for creative, different people that are like, we realize this is a need for artists. How do we bring some resources to them and information so we can help guide them?
I remember going to Lawyers of the Creative Arts for when I decided that I wanted to take, and this is the funny thing, this is one of the reasons it took Mad Rhythm so long to become a non-for-profit tax exempt entity, is because I remember going to Lawyers for the Creative Arts, and this is a long time ago. So this is before they would send you an email with all the links to the forms you needed. They would give you the forms.
The paper.
So you left there with a stack of papers. And man, I remember sitting down and trying to go through, and after a page and a half, I was too through.
I don't know.
And after like 3 months, I was like, and so that paper just sat there. I was like, I kept coming back to it.
I'm gonna do it today.
I'm gonna do it, and then so it took a long time until Creative Genius Law is who we ended up connecting with.
Man, out here saving lives.
Man, and to this day, they're why we're a non-for-profit. But so I just say, and I thought I liked paperwork. Like, I was that rare breed of like entertainer or artist who like I said, my uncle, who was one of my mentors, was a businessman, an entrepreneur. So I was always like looking at him. And I remember, just as much as I watched like dance movies on TV, I like movies with like Michael J. Fox taking over a company. I used to like all them little, corporate raider type movies.
Exactly.
As almost as much as dance movies. So I was like, oh, I could do this. When I was young, I turned half of my bedroom into an office.
Okay. You was a businessman from
man. In high school, I wore suits every day. Like, I was determined to be the businessman, or at least look the part, or at least be what I thought a businessman was.
Right.
I was playing dress up, though, because now that I'm in business every day, ain't nothing like a good pair of sweats.
And it ain't nothing, I was like, it don't have nothing to do with that suit either. Man, please. It's gritty. It can be gritty.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So tell me about Red Clay, the name. Like, you think of certain places in the country, mainly South, have red clay. So I know there's connection with our ancestors there. But so I'm curious just to know.
Yeah.
Red clay.
It definitely came from that. Both of my parents are from Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
And I spent almost every summer there with my grandparents.
Okay.
Like, we got out of school like the next day. It was like, all right, pack your suitcase,
we
out of here because we about to enjoy our summer. But yeah, so summer's there, and it was back in the day when kids played outside. So that was something I remember with my cousins, like going outside playing. And for me, being from up north, it was like, what is this? They dirt red. You know what I mean? It's like, what is going on? And I mean, it was a place of memory for me in terms of creativity, imagination, joy. And I felt like it's really what's guided my work, and the desire to be an artist and a creative was tied to that, like, play and imagination and possibility and dreaming and visioning. So when I was thinking about a name that resonated with me, like that red clay that you can mold and make into whatever you want it to be, and we didn't have a whole lot of money, so I was like, this is a Mercedes 320, whatever.
That's right.
Whatever you made it, that's what it was, and that was a way to vision for your life. So Red Clay made sense to me as a company name. It wasn't my name, Vershawn, but it was still very tied to me, and it felt more rooted in culture. And it's something I saw when I went to Senegal. The dirt there is red.
It's red, yeah.
So I was like, yes, it's coming all, back together. So it felt very authentic in that way as a name for the company, and it's expressing this this molding and this making that we do in dance and in the arts, where we're taking just a raw whatever that is and really forming
it into something. That's dope. That's what I thought. Sometimes I think I'm smart. Sometimes
very smart.
So that's what I thought, and so I mean I knew it had something to do. So, but it's great to hear that story. And what stood out to me just now is the fact that you were like, it's not my name, but it's something that resonated, because I'm the same way with Mad Rhythms. Yeah. Everybody was like, Brill Barrett's Mad Rhythms, and I was like, nah, I want to take my name off of it because I want it to be something that exists without me. Yeah. I want it to be something that can even become an institution and be around long after I'm gone. Exactly. So and that we don't always think like that early, because before Mad Rhythms, I was all about, I'm going to be famous.
Exactly.
Everybody's going to know the name Brill Barrett.
Yes.
And by the time, fast forward, we're on Mad Rhythms, they're like, Brill Barrett's Mad Rhythms? I'm like, no, it's not what I told you. Just Mad Rhythms. Leave it. Brill Barrett and his troupe, no, Mad Rhythms. And I understand, from a marketing point, why the more recognizable name. Sure. But now I love... fast forward to many, many years, I ran into somebody just a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, oh, Mad Rhythms, are you in Mad Rhythms? Wow. And I was like, I definitely am. And the other person started cracking up because they were like, he is Mad Rhythms.
Yeah. But I think the beauty is that you're able to put the essence of who you are in an organization. And that, to me, is long lasting and meaningful. It's great to just say that's the name, but it's like, did the person pour into the organization in a way that their essence stays?
It stays, yeah.
More so than like, this is the name. It's like, well, who was the person? I don't know, So that to me was more long lasting. I want people to know that my presence was there, and that's what's the secret sauce inside of the organization.
I agree, because whenever I see Red Clay perform, I think of you. Even you're not on stage, but I'm like, thank you. That's definitely Vershawn's vision.
Same.
another note to add, that same person was like, "Oh, you're in Mad Rhythms? Do you know Star Dixon?"
What?
I was like, yes. Like, I was like hurt and then proud all at the same time, right?
That's amazing.
But yeah,
that's dope. That's legacy.
Yeah,
Yep,
absolutely.
That's legacy.
And it's funny talking about legacy, how far that is probably removed in the beginning of our thought processes. But now, like, I couldn't imagine Mad Rhythms without me in the beginning.
Right.
But now all I'm imagining is where it goes once I'm no longer here.
Yes.
And that's the legacy of keeping the commitment to excellence alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, artivist. That's a nice segue to me. And so when I first saw that, of course, I was like, well, I've been running around saying I'm a taptivist all along. And I think it's because we sometimes don't have the luxury of just being artists for the sake of the art. Yeah. Some people don't understand that that's actually a luxury. Because sometimes when you're a member of any oppressed group, you know, I know the new terminology is BIPOC, so I kind of like that. It kind of rolls it all into one. But especially, you know, as a person of color, as a Black person, everything, like, I'll be glad when I get to the point where I can create art just for the sake of art, because then I'll have done what I needed to do with the activism of the art. And so I'm just when I saw your shirts that said artivism and I am an artivist and all that, I was all like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So tell me how that came about through your work.
I was reading a book called It's Bigger Than Hip Hop by M.K. Asante. So I gotta always give credit.
Of course, what credit is due.
I did not coin that word. And I'm not even sure if he coined the word, but that was the first time I saw it. And he is the son of Dr. Kamaru, Welsh. She's a well-known dance artist and has her own dance technique called Mfundala, which is like an African, contemporary African form, but still really rooted to traditional West African movement. But I knew a little bit about her, but I picked up the book. I'm not even sure how I picked up the book because I'm not a hip hop, but I was just like, it's bigger than hip hop. But I grew up in the hip hop era. Right. So I was like, it's a lived experience for me. It's not a class.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something I'm taking in the studio. So I picked it up and he was talking about kind of what you were saying about the responsibility of an artist once you understand the purpose of your work. It's like once you know that and see that, you have a responsibility to then act and move in that place. You can't unknow what you see, you know? And so when you see inequities and when you see different forces that are oppressing people that you care about or a people group that you are a part of, then you have an opportunity through your art to address that. Yeah. You know, for those that are in the community that may not be, or outside of the community. So he talked about that, like it's a great responsibility and a privilege, though, to be able to use that as a way to gather people together or rally people together around a thing. And even if they're not called to action right away, there's an awareness and a knowing, so that you can't say, oh, I didn't know that, you know, I didn't know that this was happening on 40. I didn't know. It's like, no, it was put before you in a way that was very artistic and beautiful and all the things, but it still should cause you to question, like, okay, what is that something for me to act on? Am I a part of the problem? Like, am I adding to whatever that the situation is? Or can I be a part of the solution? Or what's my role in it, really? And I think that's what I try to get to in a lot of my work, is for people just to think about, where's my role in this? Even if it's not my child or my family member, like, but what is my role as a part of, as a member of society inside of this area? And where do I have a platform to either bring additional resources or whatever? So just to... that's what I feel like is a responsibility for me and my work. And I don't think I'm not the first. Artists have been doing this for
Right.
many, many years.
Right.
Many, many years, but just the vocabulary to explain what I'm doing and that I'm being very intentional about it. It's not just, oh, that just happens to be about, no, this is something I'm seeing in real life and I want to address it. I may not be downtown marching with the pickets, that's not my
We
thing.
all have our roles, yep.
And my role is to put this on a stage for you to come and say, I didn't think about it that way, or this is a different perspective, or just to feel it in an embodied way, like to actually feel and to see someone expressing that, then that's going to touch you because you have that same, like, that heart, that rhythm, that beat inside of you to connect to that. And, or if you don't, to understand why you're not.
Right,
like,
right.
What's shut off inside of my lived experience that I'm not able to access and connect to another human being in that way. So I think it's that was my first connection to the word, and then I was like, yeah, I'm an artivist, and I wanna train other artivists. And there's nothing wrong with arts for art's sake.
Right.
I'm not sitting in judgment of that, but my purpose and why I was gifted with this why I was gifted and able to move in this art form is for that. And it's not I will say it's not always easy, because everyone doesn't want to be challenged in that way when it comes to the theater. They're like, come on, let's just clap my hands, tap my feet, and
let's
go
just have
home.
some fun.
Let's
yeah,
just have some fun. And I'm like, yeah, but there are folks that are seriously challenged in the world, and so I can't. Again, once I know, I can't just turn that off and act like I don't see.
I believe the great comic book writer Stan Lee wrote for Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
And there you go.
You said a couple of things that really resonated with me. One, intentional. I find myself saying that more and more. Like, to operate without intention is I don't even understand it anymore. No. And even when I'm talking down to the root of tap dance, like every step, every rhythm, I deal a lot in improvisation, as I'm sure you do as well. And it's like, yes, you don't make it up, but why you do each thing has to have a place in the sphere of all things that make up what you do. So I love that you said that. I talk about intentionality all the time, like everything. Look, I see I'm making noise. I'm surprised. Vanessa ain't been like, stop moving your hands. Cause now we really getting into like it's
in it now.
But the other thing is, I feel like for us, like for me, literally tap saved my life. So I literally was like, now I have to save lives with tap. Like it was a string of consciousness. And I tell people, I used to say that I thought tap was my gift from God. And then I realized it's not. Tap is the tool. But my gift is to affect change in my community via tap.
Okay.
And that
I like that.
It took me a while, because I was like, yeah, that's my God gift. God gave me that gift. And then I'm like, but it's the things that I'm doing with it, I think, are the true gift.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. Yeah.
You got me, you got me thinking hard. I think that's why, like I say, I'm so, whenever Red Clay comes across, I'm ecstatic. I'm happy just to see you all making the moves and making the changes, and just, I don't know, and getting the attention, because so many times we doing the work and we don't do it for the attention.
But hello, we over here.
But it is very nice.
It's nice
to be recognized, to be seen. So Red Clay, your own building.
Man.
What was that process like? I'm just curious, because I know certain aspects of that firsthand.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you already know what happened. We have been arts partners for really since we got to Chicago. Like I said, we were at the Gary Comer Youth Center. Then we moved to Grand Crossings Park, and then we got in the arts partners in residence through the Park District. So that's how we ended up at Fuller Park.
Okay.
Which I think was really, at first I was like, oh, But it was really divine. I didn't know how much dance history came out of Fuller Park. Like, there's so many dance groups that have been started, and I mean, just so many. So I was like, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. And we were there for 5 years.
Okay.
I didn't even realize it had been 5. I was like, we've been there for 5 years. And I was like, man, Mr. Brown, you didn't kick us out. But we invested in that space. We were able to turn an old wood shop room into a dance studio. From my understanding, it's still a dance studio. We put down a dance floor, mirrors. Like, we were like, we knew that it was a transition place for us, but we need to pour into this space because it has allowed Red Clay to grow and vision forward being here. So it's like, we gotta invest while we're here. But the pandemic.
Hold on, let me make that note. Vision forward. Okay, keep going. I've seen that in your stuff too. Now I see it. Okay.
I'm so done with you.
And then
but the pandemic. So we were there, and we were making plans for a transition, trying to see where do we want to be, what kind of space do we need. We had done a space assessment through IFF of like, well, this is how much square foot you're using, and based on what you want to do. We did all that, and then we looked at the price.
And for those who don't know, ISF is?
IFF is it's a organization that works specifically with nonprofits in terms of capital funding. So when you're looking to build out or any sort of like financial, and they also do some financial help in planning and things like that, but they specifically want to support 501c3s. Yeah. And you know, because when you go to a traditional bank, it's always it's a risk. But anyway, that's another podcast.
Right.
But
the perception of dance.
The perception, it's risky. But anyway, we did that plan, and I had been talking with my board, and was like, you know, we really got to find our own space. We're outgrowing this space, and we just didn't have the autonomy to even vision, because it was always, well, what is the park district gonna say first?
Right.
How many days a week are we gonna be able to get? Okay, so now let's fit our programming into it instead
of having a space where you could
I can
create programming.
We can be there whenever we need to be. So with the shutdown, there was just a really slow return to reopening, and it was the timeline was just so. It could be 1 month. It could be 3 more months. It could be, and I'm sitting here like, I got a whole organization. I need to know what we're doing. So I talked to my board. I was like, we're going to have to move forward with this plan quicker than we thought. What are our options? And so we knew our first goal was to be able to purchase land and build. That was just something that my grandfather was always like, buy you some land and build you something. So I knew that as a child. I was like, this is what I want to do. But I knew that wasn't going to happen in a couple of months. So I was like, what are our other steps? And so we looked at some places. We thought about where we wanted to be. That was the first thing. What community do we actually want to be in? Where are the resources that we're able to access? And then we got to go to community and make sure that it's cool for us to come.
Yeah.
You know? So we did all of that. We ended up in Woodlawn. We found the place. We worked with POA, the Preservation for Affordable Housing. They had a facility. They had open space. And so we just went in and were like, look, this is what we need. This is how much money we got. This is how much money we got. But you all are community developers. So you want to develop and pour into community. And we are community-minded organization. So can we meet in the middle? So we opened up. We're at 808 East 63rd. We opened up. This is our second year in the space.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We worked with that architect, Brian Hudson, Black architect's amazing.
Yeah, I know Brian.
Yeah, he fit.
I've been knowing him since Kinko's days.
He was like, Vershawn, you only have this much space, and you want this much. So it was great because he kept my, just brought me back down to reality. But yeah, so we worked with him to build it out. We had an amazing general contractor, D. Jones Construction. Black woman-owned construction company that was important to me, and she brought my dream to fruition. Okay, and so thank you for that. She brought my dream to fruition, and I still feel like this is a stepping stone for Red Clay. It's where we needed to be to root ourselves, to learn what's necessary to run a facility of your own, and what are the things operationally you got to build up inside of your organization. So there was some knowledge learning, some gaps in our knowledge. And we're like, there's some other professionals we need to bring around the table. Because again, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I think I'm a businesswoman. I'm all right at it, but there's definitely areas I don't know. So like that was the first. So right now we're feeling good. We got a pretty good foundation, and now it's just how do we sustain that as we're still coming out of a pandemic. Yeah,
because it's not over.
It is not over. So how do we sustain this, and then how do we? And then it's also thinking about, is that space that we originally visioned what we really need, or are there other alternatives to where we could go with this idea of space? And so that's where we are right now with it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, we're gonna wrap it up only because we have to. But before we do that, so you also have a podcast. What is the name of your podcast, and where might people find it?
Yeah, it is called Artivist Talk.
Of course.
And again, we talking about all things, not just dance, but really just folks that approach their art making through the lens of an artivist. And what does that mean to them? So we got to have you on there.
Anytime. You already know.
But that's and you can find us on, Apple, Spotify, all the places you find podcasts. Yeah, so we're gearing up for our second season. We've only completed one season.
Yeah, you're in our second season.
Oh my goodness. This is some work, bro. I'm like,
the whole first season I did by myself.
Oh wow.
And I think I had maybe 2 interviews in that first season. Okay. But the most of it was just me sitting here talking and Vanessa yelling and showing me stuff. But interviews are much easier because especially when there's like the shared interest like we have. So the last thing I want to say though is you run now. So Red Clay how do you coin yourselves? Modern contemporary? I know things change.
Yeah, we are Afro-contemporary.
Afro-contemporary. I love it.
Yeah, that's Afro-contemporary because there's that lens through which we look at contemporary dance. It's slightly different.
It's like,
Yeah.
And then the other part of that is, and you've always had tap at your studio.
I know.
And I appreciate that as a tap dancer. Because I tell people, tap dancers, so we've been having this fight on 2 fronts.
Okay.
Because of the civil rights era and history and Hollywood and the whitewashing, a lot of black folks and black organizations, black artists, black dancers did not think of tap as their own.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that is fighting with the white community or the general community or even folks in it who change the narrative and things of that. Is like, yes, tap is ours. It's for everybody.
Yes.
But let's give credit, like you said in the beginning of this interview, where credit is due. Yep. And so when I come across, and I know like there's many ballet studios and even the black owned ones, not many of them have tap.
Yeah.
There's this interesting like subculture of tap being a cousin or tap being other in the dance world. And so the fact that you always have had tap at your studio, and of course because all the teachers pretty much came from Mad Rhythms.
I go to the best. I'm like, we got to have the best. Who's available? Who can slide out and give us just 2 hours a week? Yeah. No, it was just important to me. When I started training in dance, I did start taking tap.
Okay.
And it was, I can't even really begin how to describe the foundation that it gave me as a dancer, and understanding musicality, understanding where my weight and my breath and it's an understanding that I as a body can make rhythm too. That is something that a lot of forms don't teach. And as a well-rounded, versatile dancer, even if you choose not to go down that path, you need to have this experience and this foundation, because it will inform so much about your just the way that you're able to show up inside of any sort of dance practice. And a lot of people would say like, oh, well, ballet does that. No, it doesn't do it. It does not. And I'm just sorry. It does not. So that was always important to me to have tap. Like I said, they may not go on and do, and if they get to a certain, I'll be the first one to be like, so we can take you this far. If you want to go further, let me give you Brill's number. I'm very honest about that, but I want to at least start you on that journey, because some dancers will find like, no, contemporary is not my thing, tap is my thing. But I'm just trying to plant that seed, and then for you to be like, these are all the options you have as a dancer. All of it is dance. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
And I appreciate,
all of it is dance,
and I appreciate you for that.
It takes just as much technical proficiency, like all the things that they talk about as a dancer. It's the same. It's no different. So that's why we do it.
Yeah,
you know?
and the word you used, foundation.
Yeah,
because we trying to get past this whole ballet is the foundation of all dance. It's not, and I wish people would stop being offended by that statement and just
be all right
it's
with
just
it.
it's just a fact.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, I'm going.
Okay,
I'm going.
all right. Thank you so much, Vershawn.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful having you.
Thank you for
and
having me.
we'll talk again. This has been the Either And podcast with Vershawn Sanders Ward. I am your host, Brill Barrett, and there may be a part 2 because I'm gonna have to call you back up to talk some more.
I'm ready.
All right.
Let me know.
Peace out, peoples.